Good morning and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Faith. I am so happy for all of you that are joining with us this morning on this segment called Mental Health and the Church. We understand in today's time that 1 in every 5 adults in the United States are dealing with some type of mental health issue. We understand that mental health is prevalent in all of our communities, just not the African American community or the Caucasian community, but it is hitting every community in the United States. And because of COVID-19, COVID has really exacerbated the thrust of mental health and mental illness within the homes, within our schools, on our jobs. And so today, as the church, we want to deal with the issue of mental health. And so I am so happy today to have my good friend, and she is a mental health expert. She has her own practice as well as she works in the field and with her own practice. My good friend, Marcia Williams. Say hello to everybody, Marcia.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm so glad that you're here today. This is a topic that can be like taboo in the church.
Yes.
Nobody wants to talk about mental health in the church. You know, mental health in the church, we were discussing this earlier, doesn't look like, what the movies portray it to be.
Right.
People are not rolling on the floor. Foam is not coming out of their mouth, and it ain't a bunch of priests in collars or elders in collars laying hands on people. So what does mental health look like in this day and age?
Well, right now, I think with the pandemic, with what we have going on right now, which is worldwide, we have people who are isolated, people are lonely, people having to do things differently, and we're seeing a lot of anxiety, a lot of acute depression, some major depression. When I say major depression, that's like major depressive disorder, in that they have had some level of depression previously, or sadness, excessive worry, unable to get out of their beds, unable to talk to people. And that thing has been blown up. As you said, it's been exacerbated by the problem of now isolation. I can't be with my friends. I can't talk to people. I can't go places the way I used to. So now you're seeing that people are beginning to be more ill in that they're not able to get out of their beds.
Right.
So we're just seeing a lot of people that are very anxious about tomorrow because they don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
So if I'm a person, how do I deal with some of the anxieties that I have, so they will not lead to depression or lead to those disorders that may come with anxiety? Because I'm a firm believer that a lot of things start with anxiety.
Yes, they do.
And anxiety is like the gateway or the opening of the door to a lot of other mental health issues.
Well, anxiety is excessive worry, okay? And a lot of people are worried because they don't know, again, what tomorrow brings, right?
Right.
So one of the things that I always tell people is to recognize what it is that you're worried about. When those thoughts start to come into your head, you need to recognize them. You need to see how they're making you feel, and then ultimately how they're making you behave. And so then you have to address those and really test the reality of that worry. Is this something that I can deal with? Is this something that I can do anything about?
Wow.
If not, you know what? I need to put that to the side. Is this something that I can do something about? So what can I do something about? How can I deal with this? And if this worry is greater than you and something that you really can't quite handle, you need to call a professional, because that worry can lead to illness. That can start to make you feel sick.
Right.
Because, just because it's a mental illness, it can go into kind of somatic, what we call illnesses of the body. Can have muscle aches and heart, palpitations.
Right,
like
right.
that.
All that stress that comes on with it. And so do you think people are over anxious about getting back to normal, or whatever this thing called the new norm is going to be? Do you think people want to get back to what they used to do, or there's a lot of anxiety and worry over the vaccine, over this and all of this? So as not only a professional counselor, but also a Christian, what is the stance from that point? How do you deal with a person that could be having anxieties of getting the vaccine, having the anxieties of getting back to the new norm, getting to a normal, or getting to what we call now the new norm? What would you do? What kind of instruction would you give? Not only from your counselor background, just being
Even as a public health
pu-
practitioner, yeah.
public health practitioner and a believer.
Right, and a believer. So, first of all, the Lord gave us all of these tools right now that we have to follow, that we should be following.
Right.
The government, the Centers for Disease Control, and other entities in the government have told us that we need to wash our hands. We need to wear our gloves. We need to be socially distanced. We
Right.
need to be masked, wear our masks. The Lord gave us these things. Okay, He gave us these things for a reason, and I think that one of the things that we're having, people are testing like, well, somebody says we shouldn't. So, look, right now we're in a very unknown situation. We don't know how this thing is transmitted completely, because there's some people who are actually carriers of this, and they don't know how in the world they even had that.
Right.
So that in and of itself will cause anxiety. So my thing is if you don't know, then do the things that are going to help to prevent you from even getting to that point.
Right.
That's how you can bring some of your worry under check. So if you're doing these things, you're doing all the things, and I mean at 100%, not some of the times, this can help. As a believer, we're supposed to, Lord gave us the science. Okay, He gave us the science.
Yes, He
Let's
did.
believe in the science.
Believe in it.
Believe in the science. And so I think that really helping people to understand that this pandemic, right now, it's not going away anytime soon.
Right.
So if we're going to be in the midst of the storm, ask God to help us to walk with us as we're going
Right.
through this storm, and help me to have my ears open and my eyes to see. If they're telling me this, help me to know what it is I'm supposed to do, what I'm not.
And give me the revelation.
And give me the
Because
revelation.
David said, yea, though I walk through the valley
That's it.
of the shadows of death, I shall fear no evil.
No evil.
So I don't have to fear the pandemic,
Right.
because I have God with me. But also God has allowed all of these things to come into fruition so I can be safe.
Absolutely.
So and so I can do those things. So let's shift gears just a little bit. Let's talk. We talk about mental health a lot, but we never talk about what we consider mental illness or mental conditions. What's the difference between a mental illness versus a mental condition? Because what I'm seeing, like I said earlier in the opening, mental health in the church is not exorcism anymore.
Right.
It's not the movie The Exorcist, where you see somebody turning their head, throwing up, foam coming out of the mouth, but we are seeing people in the church with suicidal ideations, homicidal ideations, all of these type of ideations that are happening. We see people in the church that are bipolar.
Right.
We see people in the church who suffer from paranoia, schizophrenia.
Right.
And it's not the devil.
Exactly. It's not the devil.
It's not the devil all the time. So how do I deal with the mental illness or the mental condition first and
So
foremost?
first of all, we have chronic illnesses, okay? Just like diabetes, like you have high blood pressure, there are chronic illnesses that we have, such as the bipolarism, okay? That's when you have two sides of the spectrum. You have extreme highs, you have extreme lows, all looking at mood disorders, right? Then you have people who are paranoid and have schizophrenia. So when you have those in the church, those are very serious conditions, okay?
Right.
And those are people that have to be medicated and have to be under very serious health, under a health professional. This is usually through medications, as well as through some type of talk therapy as well. But then you have people who are in the church, and this is what we probably mainly seeing, are people who are extremely sad. And those people who, again, are isolated. Those people
Yes.
who during the week, nobody knows that someone is beating me up
Wow.
and harming me.
Yes.
And these people have chronic conditions of the depression that I talked about earlier.
Yeah, right.
The anxiety that I talked about. They may have an adjustment disorder in that for a short amount of time, this big change came and they can't handle it. Death. When you have
Yeah.
people who are dealing with, the loss of a loved one.
Right.
This is also a mental health condition.
Right.
So we have to look at the ability and have the wherewithal to talk and have conversation and open up enough from ourselves to them to say, you know what, come to me, talk to me. And the first questions that you should be able to ask them are, do you have any intentions of harming yourself?
Right.
So the suicidal ideation. Do you have any intentions of harming anyone? Those are the homeless
Suicidal
ideations.
ideations, right.
And from there, you have numbers to call, you
Hmm.
have people you can call, such
Right,
as
right,
myself,
right,
and get these people into the help that they need.
right. And that brings up a good point because that mental condition
Mhm.
is what you cannot see. You
Exactly.
can see somebody that has a bipolar condition or a mood disorder. You can see those someone who has been living in trauma and acting out
Exactly.
that trauma. You can see those things, but you can't see the sadness.
Right.
You can't see the anger.
Mhm.
You can't see those things. And the church for so many years didn't want to deal with it.
That's right.
If you're sad, then, let me shout you, thinking that you're going to get some joy.
Right.
And soon as the shout is over, you're back to being sad
Exactly.
because nobody spoke to the pain
Exactly.
that you're dealing with. So, as the church, how do we speak directly to the pain of the mental condition?
Well, I think, one of the things that my husband and I always talk about this is
Hmm.
that the church is very good about getting you to the pulpit,
Hmm.
getting you to that place and saying that I want to be saved and I want
Right.
to live my life holy. But we oftentimes will leave out how.
Hmm. Hmm.
What do I need to do and who's going to walk this out with me?
Right.
And so one of the things that I have been very open about, and one of the things that I would love to be able to do more of and see more of mental health providers to do, is to teach churches how to have lay ministry, a lay mental health ministry, where you
Hmm.
have people that they have to that they can call.
Yes.
You have a partner in this. So you're feeling extremely sad today. What is the sadness about?
Hmm.
A lot of people are suffering in total silence because they have
Yes.
absolutely no one to talk this out to. Because
Mm.
if I tell Sister So and So, the
She
whole
gonna tell
church is going to
everybody,
know about
right?
it.
and
So
that's not biblical either.
that is not
That
biblical.
that that's sowing the seed of discord. That's an
Exactly.
abomination. And the
Exactly.
Bible says, if your brother or sister is overtaken in a fault
Oh,
or something, whether that's sadness, that depression,
exactly.
that mental condition, it says you that are spiritual, cover,
Cover.
cover such
And so
one.
we're supposed to cover them.
Hmm.
So not just praying with them, but
Hmm.
helping them to walk this out. I mean, they
Hmm.
can go to a mental health. Everybody doesn't want to go and talk to a stranger,
Right, right.
but I know you, and I know you. So why aren't you safe enough for me to come to and talk to about this thing? So I think the churches have the perfect setup to have that type of lay ministry incorporated
Yes.
in their four walls.
One of the things that I did want to do right before COVID hit, I had sent two of the ministers, elders of the church, to get mental health certified
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
because the altar, you know, you have to be able to discern
Hmm.
if it's demonic or if it's mental health.
Oh, yeah.
You
I
know,
agree.
and so I've been mental health certified.
Okay.
What is it? Mental health aid
Yes,
certified,
mental health aid. Right,
like being
exactly.
first aid
Exactly.
certified.
Hmm.
They have a mental health aid certification that's out there now. It's an
Yes.
8 hour certification
It's very
process,
good. Yeah.
and it's very good. I mean,
Hmm.
they put the headphones on me where you actually this is what it sounds like in the brain of somebody who's dealing with a schizophrenic or dealing with
Voices.
voices and all those kind of things. So, I sent two of my elders to a 2-day training,
Hmm.
but then COVID hit and it kind of because
Right.
I wanted to suitcase that training to the church
Absolutely.
to get all of the ministers and elders at least mental health aid
I think it's
certified
necessary.
because I think it's very important in this next wave of ministry
Yeah.
that we really minister to the heart of people.
Absolutely.
We have preached at people for so long. Now is really time to minister to their heart.
Yes.
And I think when we get to the heart of people, we're going to uncover some stuff
We really are.
that people have been dealing with.
I absolutely
What'd you
agree.
think about that?
I think that's a great idea, and I also wanted to just mention to you that what has also been very interesting to me, that one of the issues that I've seen also in the Black community and in all of my communities of color
Hmm.
is that on top of the pandemic, we've had the pandemic of racial injustice.
Yes.
And so I think that has I've seen it cripple men. I've had so many men to come to my Black men to come
Hmm.
to my services because they are having a difficult time dealing with the fact that they can't even speak, can't go out, can't cover their families the way that they need to. And what am I supposed to do? So I think that's another area where the church has a very, just the role that could just
Right.
blow up, because we're going to need some people that, especially our men and our young men, who are going to need some covering and to really help someone to help them to walk it out.
Right.
And have those kind of branches in our communities with the police,
Right.
with the mental health community, to help them to bridge that and get some help there as well, because it's really a problem. It's a major problem.
It's becoming a major issue. So we talked about, the racial injustices that can cause mental health. We talked about the COVID-19 and people feeling alone, or that spouse is being abused and he or she is suffering in silence. I don't want to say she,
Absolutely.
but he or
Men
she,
as well.
that is suffering in silence, and the anxieties of people worried about if they're going to get COVID, if they're going to die alone, or so. We know some of the causes. Are there any other causes out there that you can think of that can cause some of these? I won't want to get it right. The mental conditions.
Okay, well, right now we have people who are having issues with employment, how to feed their children. People have lost their jobs. We've had a serious economic downturn, and this has really caused a very serious problem with people, worrying again, excessive worry, and anxiety about tomorrow.
Right.
And even if I get behind on my bills, which I have never gotten behind, what am I going to do? We have food banks, lines that are longer than ever now.
Yes.
With people who have never had to go out in search of food for their families. So there's so many things that I think are impacting us, and they're going to continue to impact us for a while, because until we get the pandemic under some type of, hold, these are all these things are going to be impacted.
Right. So how do I, I've been impacted by loss of job, been impacted by now I have to go stand in a food line that I never did since the 70s, where they were, the cheese and the canned milk and the powdered milk. Never had to stand in the food line until now it's almost like I'm going back to the stand in the food line. How, as the church, and when I mean the church, I'm not talking about the building. I'm talking about the church.
Right.
That's me.
The church body, right.
The church, the me. I'm the church. When the person sees me,
I am the church.
I am the church.
That's right.
So as the church, how do we help a person that, has had these setbacks, has had these things that have happened, as the church? Because Jesus said, this is the beginning of sorrows. So that it's going to get worse. Potentially it's going to get worse based on what Jesus told his disciples. So as the church, how do we help those that are struggling in this impact, that have been severely impacted?
There's just resources. I think one of the things that we have to have available to us are the resources in our community that can really help these individuals. And what I mean by that, the United Way helps with housing.
Yes.
Helps with the payment of electricity bills. We need to be able to reach out to our power companies and to the resources that we absolutely need to ensure that these individuals have what they need. As the body, we should be, as the church, I should be like a walking social worker for these people.
Wow.
I should be able to walk with you and call these individuals. We see a lot of social workers, and that's what I am. I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
Right.
But we're able to call all these resources and these facilities and get you help. But I want you, and I also want to teach people how to help themselves. So I want you to be able to build relationships with these groups. And our trouble don't last always.
Right.
We know that. If we endure the night, our joy is going to come. But we've got to go through this to get to the other side. And so in order for us to do that, we've got to endure. This thing is not going to happen quickly.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
But we have to be able to speak to these individuals again, be able to walk this out with them. You don't leave them out there, give them the resources, and walk away.
Right.
Brother so-and-so, how you doing today? Do you have what you need? Let me check on this for you. Have banks within your church. Have people bring in
Yeah.
the food.
Mm.
People can't, they can't gather now, but that doesn't mean you can't keep something outside of your
Right.
doors for people to come and bring food and to
Food.
bring
Right.
clothing or to bring things that people need.
Mm.
So I think that we can be a resource to these individuals just as much, you know, physical resource to these
Mm.
people as much as we can walking out the word with them, you know,
Yeah.
just talking to them about the word. The
Right.
word is nourishment for our soul. But I want to see, people need to see the manifestation of
They,
the word.
they really do. This
And
this is something you can't shout your way
you
out
can't
of.
shout your way out of that.
You can't.
You
Hey,
don't
if, be honest
shout,
with you,
still got the problem.
shouting is good, but this is something that you're gonna have to walk out.
You're going to have to walk this out.
And if you are struggling with the walk, you should be able to reach out to somebody to help you through that struggle.
Absolutely.
Whether it is a mental health professional, whether it's a pastor that has been trained in mental health that can resource you to someone. There has to be somebody that has to walk this out with you.
Yeah.
And so as we close, I'm so
Oh,
glad.
oh.
I'm so glad that time flies when you're
I
having
know,
fun.
this is
Don't it?
fantastic, so
So if you were in a room full of people and you was the keynote speaker,
Wow. That's pressure.
what would you say to a room full of people now who are struggling with some type of mental condition, who's suffering trauma, who's suffering a traumatic experience throughout this COVID-19, whether it be death, whether it be abuse in the home, a loss of someone or something? What would you say to that audience?
One thing that I would say is that we need people to understand that you should not suffer in silence.
Mhm.
Silence is a killer. Mental illness is just like I feel like hypertension. It's a silent killer. And what I mean by that, if I were to talk to a group of individuals, I would want them to know that if you sit on your anxiety, if you sit on that feelings of excessive sadness and worry, it will harm you.
Mhm.
And the best thing for you to do is to get help. There are numbers there. Open that book, find someone to talk to. Call your pastor, call an elder, call someone. Reach out. If you start to feel like you want to harm yourself, reach out, because the moment that you sit on that silence, that you sit silently on that hurt and on that worry,
Mhm.
and you don't see clear to tomorrow, and this is for children as well, get help and get help quick.
And not only adults, ladies and gentlemen, are suffering, but kids are suffering as well.
Yes.
And so we have to do our best. If you're listening, if you're watching this, and if you're suffering in silence, or you know if your children are suffering in silence, I recommend that you call Dr. Marcia Williams. How can you, she is a licensed clinical counselor, licensed clinical therapist. She's going to be Emmanuel Temple Church's church therapist. Because this is something that we have talked about for a while, that I'm a firm believer in helping people, making people whole.
Yes.
Jesus is in the business of making people whole. He doesn't put Band-Aids on people, but he makes you whole. And sometimes he allows people to come into your life to make you whole. So how can you be reached?
So you can give me a call. Again, I'm Marcia Williams, and you can reach me at 240-437-6310. And I'm with my company is called the Mary Grace Center for Empowerment and Wellness. And we are, again, in the business of making people whole, helping people to help themselves to be whole.
God bless you. Thank you so much, Dr. Williams, for
So welcome.
being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I hope that this has blessed you tremendously. You can find Dr. Williams. She gave you your number. You can reach out to the church as well if you need any additional support or any additional information and any additional help. God bless you, and may his grace shine upon you, and may he give you strength in the time of this struggle. God bless you, and thank you for tuning in. And next week, we'll see you next week for another show, another episode of Let's Talk Faith. God bless you.